Hello and welcome to Mastering in the Box. In today's video we are going to go through a mastering session where we master a track from a solo instrumentalist. Hi folks, it's Smudge here and welcome to another video from Mastering in the Box. In today's video we're going to take a look at how we can master a session from a solo instrumentalist. But before we get into the content of today's video, if you want to know more about digital mastering, then make sure you hit that subscribe button below and make sure you tick that bell and select all to receive notifications on all of our videos moving forward. And as per normal, if you want to support the channel, then I'll leave links in the description of where you can support the channel through buymeacoffee.com. So the inspiration for this week's video comes from a great comment by Zeb1111, who mentioned that whilst there's tuition and guidance available for mastering full band scenarios, there's not much in the way of guidance for mastering songs by solo instrumentalists, and I thought it would be a great idea to do for this week's video. And the track I'm featuring this week is the track called DustYouAndMe by David Youngs. And this is another track that's available through the Cambridge Music Technology website. So if you want to practice mixing and mastering this song, then check the Cambridge Music Technology website out. There'll be links in the description down below. So before we go any further, I think it's just prudent now just to take a brief listen to the track. And let's just play some of it through now and listen to the song in question. So it's a really nice piece of music and I just love the sound of the acoustic guitar. I'm a big guitar fan anyway, but listening to the instrumentalists and how these acoustic guitar players do this, it just amazes me. It's such a great piece of music. The thing to consider when you approach a piece like this, it is very raw, it is very bare bones, and we need to kind of emphasize that because it's also very emotive. And this is the thing, when you haven't got lots of different frequencies clashing all the time, it's how can we really just emphasize the emotion that the player is putting into the piece of music. And that would be really my approach when it comes to considering this track. We know that it's going to be very dynamic because we have not only the articulation of all of the individual notes, but we also have the percussion element as well, which is all the different taps when they're playing on the acoustic guitar and trying to get those, those very much percussive resonant frequencies out as well. So we want to try and retain as much of the dynamics as possible, whilst also giving an element of control. So that's really the approach is going to be, how can we just allow the song to be as raw and emotive as possible and really kind of emphasize that as we can, or if we can, whilst also not really damaging any of the dynamics as well. We need to obviously get the song louder because we're going to treat this very much as if we would do for some form of digital release. However, it doesn't need to be too loud. We want to keep those dynamics intact. So let's go on to the first stage first and let's take a look at the overall volume. So the first consideration here is going to get the track up to some more form of commercial level, more commercial loudness. We're not looking to really go overboard here. It's just to get it up to a volume where it will start to compete with other tracks of a similar nature. And we've spoken before about how we can, give a more subtle, compressed or limited sound by stacking limiters. And we're very much going to take this approach in this particular instance. One of the things, if you start to overstress a single limiter, you will start to get over compression. We really want to retain the dynamics as much as possible. And in this particular instance, we're going to start actually with a clipper, and it's the free clip by Ven Audio. And we're not doing too much here. The gain is 1.2 dB, and it's the ceiling at -1. It is just a real gentle clipping, and as you'll see in a second, it's only really starting to react when we get those hard percussive knocks on the acoustic guitar. The clipper is set into soft clip type, and because it is a clipper and there is potential maybe for a little more harmonics or some saturation, I've put it into 32 times oversampling and the post oversampling clip at 0 dBFS. So it's just really trying to minimize any potential saturation or distortion that you can get from the clipper. It is very much in soft clip type, which is the recommendation from Ven Audio for mastering purposes, and we put it in 32 times oversampling mode. That is then going into the stealth limiter by IK Multimedia, and this is one of my favourite limiters. It is very transparent, but I also like how the ceiling works. The ceiling is it's a very hard ceiling, and I just find it works on pretty much most sources. It is very much my go-to limiter, and all we've done here, so the output ceiling is -0.4. It's not really doing too much with the ceiling because we're going to go into a third limiter in a second, and we're just putting the input at 1.7 dB. So 1.2 dB with the free clip, with 1.7 with the stealth limiter. That then goes into the stock limiter, which is the limiter 2 inside of Studio One. And once again, we're not doing too much here. Ceiling at -1. Now we really want to try and get the ceiling with the final limiter, because that's effectively going to be the final true peak level that we're going to get. Threshold of 0, because I don't want to add any compression with the limiter, or as much compression with the limiter, and the gain is at 1.5 dB. So we're really trying to spread the gain increase over the 3 different plugins here. So it's the free clip by Ven Audio going into the stealth limiter by IK Multimedia, which then goes into the stock limiter inside of Studio One. And we've got the level meter here just so we can read. Once again, it's in LUFS mode, EBU +18, and it's in R128 for the LUFS measurements. So let's take a listen. So this is really interesting because when the main guitar or rhythm piece is playing, the limiters aren't really doing anything. It's only when you get those percussive elements that the limiters really start to kick in. So whilst the reduction on the final limiter might look quite high, at -2.49 dB, it's only really triggering when you get those percussive elements. So take another listen. So on this bar here, you only see the little yellow line come across, which is showing the gain reduction. That's only really showing when you're getting those percussive elements. So it's just really, controlling those transients, those percussive peaks to kind of give a more natural sound. And once again, we've got the level up quite nicely. True peak's probably a little bit too hot, but we can work out that a little bit later on. But we're starting to get the LUFS measurements somewhere around -12 and -14. So that's a really good starting point to work with. So now we've got the overall volume in a really good place. Next, it's starting to take a look at what enhancements can we do if we really need to do many enhancements at all. And I've gone through and made a few basic notes. And something that really I found was going to be critical here was to listen to other reference tracks and try and take some influence from some other engineers. And one thing I really noticed was there was a big emphasis on the low notes. When you have a single instrument, of course you then need to try and fill out the entire frequency spectrum, or give a good balance at least. And one thing I noticed was that the reference tracks were there was a lot of emphasis on those low notes and kind of giving that more warmth and depth, and giving some more of those, very much those kind of warm bass frequencies from the low E string, etc. But I also noticed that there was some added width, and it's something we can use here to kind of add, you know, give it a much more wider stereo feel. But it wasn't too much I felt we needed to do to it, and the things we kind of need to do to it is what we must retain, and that is the emotion. The thing I like about this, with the percussive elements and with the dynamics that are going on here, is very much kind of driving that emotion. It's quite an energetic song for an acoustic guitar, and we really want to kind of retain that, but also it's really retain that note articulation. So I don't want to go too overkill with any EQ. I really want to kind of just retain as much of that as possible. So on that note, let's get into the first plugin on the inserts. So the first plugin I've gone for here is the Fat Channel XT. It is one of my favourite channel strips. I really do love this. And first in line, I'm not using the high pass filter, I'm not using the limiter, but I am using the compressor. And I know we're getting compression already with the clipper, the 2 limiters, and this might seem overkill, but one of the things I just really wanted to do is add a little bit of control going into the clipper. And one of the things with this particular plugin, indeed, it's obviously based upon the SSL Master Bus compressor, and it's just such a subtle compressor, and if you just want to add an element of control, this is certainly one to go for. It's a 2:1 ratio. I'm not even putting anything on the makeup gain because it's hardly doing anything. We've got a fast attack and slow release. That gives a nice natural compression when you're using a Master Bus compressor. And the threshold is brought up just to taste, really. Let's take a brief listen and see exactly what this compressor is doing, and just pay attention to the needle here. So it's literally hardly moving, and it's just controlling those percussive elements as well. And this is just doing it stage over stage, just giving a nice balanced sound overall. And then the next move is going to be just a straightforward EQ, really. For this one I'm using the Baxton Dull, because the Baxton Dull is a shelving EQ. I didn't really want to go overboard. As I said, we really want to try and retain a lot of that note articulation, but it's trying to add that low end emphasis that we were talking about. And the first move I've done here is just a cut at 30 Hz. It's just to take out some of that real low rumble. But what I've actually done is put a low shelf in, 131 Hz, and it's 2 dBs boost. Let's cut it here, or bypass it here. Let's take a listen with it in and with it out. So it's really adding that kind of that warmth and that depth that we were after. As I say, it's not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but we are trying to, you know, add some more balance to the overall frequency spectrum. And just by doing that and adding that a little bit more low end, just gives it a little bit more balance overall, and a little bit more warmth, and a little bit of depth as well. And the only other thing I've done here is just a bit of a high shelf, and literally it's 7.1K. And it's 1 dB, and it's just really kind of given that counterbalance. If we're adding that warmth at the low end, it's kind of just giving that little bit of an enhancement at the top end. So let's take one more listen. So that's very much it for the Fat Channel XT. We don't really need to do too much, just one compressor, one EQ, and then we're doing most of the control with the clippers and the limiter. The only other thing I've really felt I needed to do with this particular track was to look at adding some more stereo width. And it's, once again, this is very much kind of an artistic choice rather than anything else. And I wouldn't normally use a plugin such as the binaural pan for something like this, if it was a band scenario, because I'd probably go for something like a mid-side EQ and add some high end on the sides, something along those kind of lines to give the impression or the illusion of width. But because we've only got one instrument here, we can actually use this in a much more forgiving way, and it's really just kind of it does work here. And as I say, listening to the reference tracks, I did notice that those tracks were very much wider than this particular individual piece was. So I've gone for the binaural pan. It's a stock PreSonus plugin, and just add a little bit of width. So we'll listen to it without, and then we'll put the plugin in and just take a listen to what this is doing. So that is literally it. We've got literally one compressor, one EQ, and a little bit of width on the individual inserts. We've got obviously the clip art and the two limiters there, but that's all I feel we really need to kind of do with this track. Let's take another listen. I'm going to bypass both of the inserts on the individual channel here, and let's put them back in and just listen to what those two moves have done for us. So that's it for this week's video. And just for some final closing thoughts, the big takeaway from me here is don't overcomplicate it. Just let the song breathe, let the song be itself. It's going to have its own character, and just think about some simple enhancements that you can do just to take it to the next level. Get the song up to a more commercial standard in terms of volume, and just a couple of little enhancements just to kind of give you that extra edge. That's all you really need to do. Referencing is key. So think about some good referencing tracks and do a little bit of research as to what kind of sound that you want to achieve from your final master, and then just take away some of those key points, emphasising the low end and kind of giving that overall stereo balance. I really like what the Baxton Dull did to the high end as well, and it kind of almost kind of that point and counterpoint that we've spoken about before. And with the panning, just adding a little bit more width. I wouldn't normally use something like the binaural pan if I was mastering a song for a particular band, but for this particular example it really works well. So just consider some of those things if you're mastering a song of a similar type. And once again, the song is available for download through the Cambridge Music Technology website. Give it a go, download it, master it, and let me know how we get on. Let me know your thoughts. Would you do something differently? And if you do, leave me a note in the comment down below, because I'll be really keen to understand how you guys are approaching this as well. So that's it. So if you want to support the channel, then once again there'll be links in the description down below where you can support the channel through buymeacoffee.com. But don't forget, if you want to know more about digital mastering, hit that subscribe button below and make sure you tick that bell and select all to receive notifications on all of our videos moving forward. And all that's left for me to say is I hope you'll keep safe and well, and I'll see you in the next video coming real soon.